like to go first? Any volunteers? Oh, great. Thank you so much. Hey, can we get everyone's attention? We're going to give each table an opportunity to share. What did you discuss? What did you come up with? Agreements, disagreements? What happened?
So most of us are snowmobilers, or at least dual access, some sort of usage also. Most of it, the problem is going to be the road going up. Keeping it clear, is it wide enough? That's for snowmobiling access, that would be the main key to that. Of course, things like drainage and bathrooms are necessary. Size, if there's any way to make it bigger, bigger is better when it comes to needs for parking. Most of it was access problems. As far as keeping things like rocks or boulders or trees or things in the middle of the parking lot, aesthetically to make it more appealing. That doesn't appeal to me necessarily, or to us. It's a parking lot. There's a million trees around to look at once you get up there. So make it easier to use. One thing that I came up with, some decent signage for the parking, because people don't always use the most sense when it comes to parking. They think it's all theirs. Have some way to kind of have a direction. So when you come in there, that at least you have a head start on it. Was there anything else that was interesting?
Yeah, go ahead. Touching on that, the shape, the layout, the orientation of the restrooms, facilities like that, keep that in mind so that way you get appropriate sunlight and you don't end up burying the restrooms in the wintertime if you're going to access for the wintertime. Making sure that the snow runoff is there, that getting into the restrooms are slightly elevated so that way you're not having to go through a puddle. And just the little details of that kind of stuff. Nice. The width of the access road, getting in there with plowing and equipment. Make sure you don't have sharp corners and stuff like that so you can easily plow the whole area. I'm a little concerned with your back end unloading spot. That's a little problematic for me in Snowville, but.
Okay. Great summary. Thank you. Is there another table you'd like to go? I saw another hand. Where'd you go?
I was just doing it because nobody else was raising
All right,
their
good. Way to jump in there. Go for it, Scott.
We had a great discussion. We have 3 motorized OSB users and then summer recreators. So it was more of a conversation that they don't understand the struggles and constraints we have as motorized recreationists. And it also gave me an opportunity to talk to them about what they do.
They're very open and sweet about everything.
Excellent. That's what we hope for.
And it was cool. But just explaining our current snow park situation, what we have at our resource up there, comparatively to other areas that don't have big trucks and trailers to try to fit in small spaces. But again, everything it's multi-use to me, and the majority of our table is to focus on the multi-use nature of it, education and information.
We agree with his assessment of our conversation.
Good.
The only other thing though too is how the plan was shown with the parking. Oversized parking is definitely required regardless of snowmobiles with sled decks, simply because I know it makes sense maybe to a non-snowmobiler, a single loading and unloading zone, but in actuality and practicality, we don't do that anywhere in the West. We usually, with sled decks, we unload in situ, so we park, pull our ramp down, unload, put our ramp back. That's like, it's just much more feasible that way.
Okay.
We would have a line of cars waiting for everybody, and it just kind of bottlenecked everything. Yeah. Yeah, like a boat ramp.
Do you have a question or? No. Okay. Well, all right. Let's go around. I want to have an opportunity for each table. Would you like to go in the back?
Well, I just didn't realize, you've got motorized and non-motorized backcountry use, but you need to take into account the non-backcountry users, the snowplay people who are just going to use this parking lot as a place to play with their kids and sled, especially if right now there's a small constraint that they need to have a snow park permit to use the south side. But if there's no permitting on this side, I work for Royal Voyage in the winter at the Trailhead over here for Van Norden, and I can tell you, Saturday and Sunday, people want to have a place to play with their kids. And I'm like, there is no place unless you pay a lot of money to go to Soda Springs or Sugar Bowl, or you need a permit if you want to go to the snow park and play there. But if this is unpermitted, all of this could easily be filled up by people just playing.
there anything else at your table?
Yeah, we had,
discussed?
that was one of the big points. The other one is that we feel strongly that, just so all parties are, get a, feel that they're inclusive, is that we need to get good data on usage, so that that discussion is dead, you know, and we design correctly, all right? We don't end up with a design with a lot of empty spots of one type or another. You know, we want to optimize that for those, all groups, right? So, the maintenance is what we probably spent 20 minutes on maintenance, mainly with the plow. We know it's kind of, you got two counties, you got different agencies, you got Sugar Bowl, Boreal, and I think for this project to be successful and to be maintained as open, that has to be that discussion needs to be started now, and how that's going to be funded or paid for or collaborate. So that's probably the biggest issue. And then the maintenance, besides the plowing, is the ticketing and the restrooms, et cetera. Usually Forest Service does restrooms, but the plowing is uncertain. And then the last one was a suggestion, and you've heard it before, is that one option is to make it a snow park. That excludes the play people unless they're willing to invest or learn how to do that.
Or they have a way to buy a permit.
They have a way to buy a permit.
Kiosk.
It's a bigger problem than it's just this project, but that would be one way to kind of try to focus the winter usage on the recreation. But it does make it harder for the day people. People are coming up from Auburn or Sacramento that have no idea what a snow park pass is.
Generally, that's not true. In the current snow park, the back half is full of day sledders.
Yeah, but that fills up.
And if it's free
you know,
over here,
Right, so,
where are you gonna go?
Yes.
so those are our 4 or 3.
Great, excellent. Let's hear from another table. Yes.
So, we had a variety of interests, people that live
Yeah.
here, mostly human power, but we also have snowmobiler as well at the table. And one of the positives we saw is that there's an opportunity to separate very quickly from the parking area. Can you not hear me?
No, I was just waving to you.
To separate those uses as early as possible, and the geography allows that, and it looks like the parking would allow that too. We also talked about when one type of parking is filled, then the other type cannot abscond with it. But it could be all three types, meaning the family snow players, the non-motorized and motorized. So once the non-motorized is filled, non-motorized can't park in the motorized, and vice versa. But now that requires enforcement of some kind. Now it gets more complicated. How do you enforce that? Besides just being a good Samaritan. Those were among the things that I think we.
And plowing.
Good.
Thank you.
Important issues, for sure.
Can I just add one thing on the parking lot use? Winter and summer vehicles are different, right? And if you create all these, cater to snowmobile trailer parking for winter and restrict it, then it's going to limit access for higher volume, and there's a lot of summer use. Mountain biking and hiking, which are much smaller vehicles and higher demand for vehicles. So I think somehow that needs to be considered.
So then the drive-through would operate in the summer as well. Yeah.
Could be, so.
Horses were accounted for.
Would you like to?
No, I just think that the drive-through is, then that takes care of it in the summer, because if it's a drive-through, you can have people,
So what we're hearing is definitely a lot of concern about how it's managed, more than how it's built. It's with the change of use, how is that enforced, how do people get along? So clearly there's going to have to be some thought in how this site is actually managed on a day-to-day basis from season to season.
One aspect of where there's some uncertainty about what the designer had in mind when he picked that ratio of 80 to 12.
Right.
And I guess the question that seems, at least I have, is, I think it's fair to have the appropriate number of spots to represent the funding and the usage. But it sounds like there's a potential of this was designed in a vacuum. And so I guess we just want to make sure that that study is done. Yeah.
What you saw as a concept design was just to give a.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing that, I'm just saying that was.
Nothing's been designed yet. So let's go to another table.
One thing I just want to mention about that, those large trailer spots, you can't think of them as they're going to have the same number of occupants in those vehicles. Because someone who's pulling a trailer with 5, 6 snowmobiles in it, they're going to have a truck, double cab truck filled with people. They don't come up there with a rig like that just for one person. So it's the same as public transit. You want to get a bunch of people in there. Those might be a more efficient spot than individual.
Okay.
Can we actually clarify one thing? So I just want to clarify, when we were looking at the design, we used a program called Vehicle Tracker, and we were using snowmobile trailers, and we were also accommodating horse trailers. So we are trying to account for both seasonal uses, and the turning radius is what those vehicles are able to do. So we are trying, it's not designed, we're just trying to lay it out so that it fits. And so the ratio was not necessarily based on any use other than what worked at the site.
It was a design
It was
that makes sense.
we're throwing things at this board, this empty board, and we're trying to see what fits with the layout and what works. The 80, that was it. That was what worked. So it's, an attempt 1, or actually it was our attempt like 12, but it's the attempt 1 that we're showing to the public. So we know that can work. We're not saying that it's the best way for it to work. We're hoping to get input and feedback from everyone else to figure out what is the best way to make it work for the uses that we want to have.
So the data helps you make that decision.
That would be great.
Yeah.
You got the data?
No, but that's,
Okay.
I'm a statistician by nature, so
perfect.
I'm questioning you, where is that data?
I don't have it yet.
As designers, you need to, it's not hard to get, but you need to get.
And so one thing with having our 65% designs, not until like a year from now, is we have the opportunity to select at least one more year.
Yeah, I understand all that.
Yeah. So but it's important to us
We,
too.
we can easily miss that mark by concentrating on other issues and,
Yeah, yeah, important to have the data.
I'd like to suggest that the data may not exist. We're still going to make a decision based on what we feel is the best outcome going forward.
Yeah,
We need to optimize the space.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Is it possible to count the number of people who came up in whatever vehicle or whatever as someone who attempted to go and recreate there? It's easy to count the snowmobile trailers, someone with a ski rack and stuff like that that's up there in the wintertime, but what about the people that had to turn around and go find another place to go?
So one of the challenges with that kind of data collection, because we would all love to be making these kinds of decisions with sort of perfect information, but we know that we don't have that data today, those kinds of logs, that kind of tracking. That information doesn't exist today, and if we really wanted to do a good job of the statistical usage, then we would start a monitoring program today, and in 10 years, after we've seen a couple of drought cycles, hot, deep winter cycles with a lot of water, then maybe we'd start to have the information that we could use to do the statistics to inform the decision. But meanwhile, the parking's going to get worse, the watershed's going to get unhealthier, the trailers are going to get more abused, we're going to have more issues with erosion, and so, again, having that data would be amazing, but right now we have a little bit of funding to get this project off the ground. We know where we can operate, and we've got a great room full of people who care and want to see parking. And so we're just trying to figure out the puzzle pieces, right? We've got big pieces for trailers, we've got kind of medium pieces for full-size trucks, with sled decks. We've got maybe a couple of smaller spots, and we're just kind of figuring out how many of each we can fit, making sure that everybody can turn around, they can get in, they can get out. And so the data would be great, but we can't start there if we actually want to have parking this anytime in the next decade.
Okay, Todd, you had your hand up.
I want to kind of piggyback off of the data pieces. I think that is very, very important, and also being a data guy. But I'm also the one who writes some of the grants for the California OHV grants. So this grant you're using right now, you're talking about this planning grant. But in order to actually build it, you're going to have to get the grant for the building piece of it. And I just want to encourage you guys to dig a little deeper into what the requirements for that piece of it is, because that hasn't really come up in this conversation yet. And one of those requirements is that the money that comes from motorized users needs to be used for motorized users. And so you can come up with all these concepts and you get to that end goal and you can get to your 70 or 65%. When you go to do that final grant application, if you cannot dot the i's and cross the t's without lying, you won't get the grant. And I think that's important to dig into and let everybody know that's concerned, because there might be some constraints there that were not listed in the constraints that aren't being discussed.
Yeah, in the funding, that's kind of what I meant. It's definitely inclusive of both the planning and implementation grant sources, for sure.
Other tables that have not reported out, who wants to share?
I think it's very important to include everybody, the manpower. I mean, it shouldn't just be for one particular group. I mean, we can all agree to that. It's for all of us to enjoy. So, although we do need to meet that standard, but we need to be respectful and appreciate other manpower people too, because they've been going to it for a long time.
Absolutely.
This is all of our land together.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we haven't heard from some tables. Yes, sir. Kevin.
I would say our table is maybe more skewed towards non-motorized a little bit. And in no particular order here, just kind of going through some bullet points. Possibly more parking spaces than pull through. Maybe give up a few of those natural features. We have one opportunity to do this, so give up some of those features in lieu of more space. And then the reoccurring theme for our table, much like everybody else here, was long-term maintenance and who's going to be responsible for that. There was talk of grassroots organizations, Tahoe Backcountry Alliance, Donner Party Mountain Runners, just who ultimately is going to take care of this spot and be on top of it. And does it maybe really need that incorporated element of on-site housing with room for, excuse me, a snowplow that can be there first thing in the morning, excuse me, to clear out the parking lot. Pay-to-play component. That's been echoed a couple times here, I think. And then I think one important thing is
Pay to play as being a good thing, as being
pay-to-play being a necessary evil, potentially.
Maybe we could get a show of hands about that. I'm just curious. It's something that's coming up, and if we could hear from the room, what do you think about that? Sure. Who is a fan of pay-to-play, keeping in mind that across the street, they do have to pay, and so they may come if we make it free. Okay, wait. Specific, yeah, if you are in support of requiring some sort of fee access this area. I'll state it real clear. Okay.
I think one thing I just wanted to add on that, I think.
Actually, let's get the alternative. Who is a fan of not requiring a fee, which is fine, be proud of your answer. No judgment, no answer.
What about fee in winter and on summer?
Yeah, what about fee in winter and not in summer?
Right. I have another piece to this too, which is that if you can pay on site, that's gonna kind of, all the people coming up, they're gonna be more than willing to pay on site to use this. And that's gonna shut out a lot of local users. It's gonna fill up, and it would be better if it was a snow park permit, like where you have to get it ahead of time and you have to plan. Because when you roll out of the house with snowmobiles and you wanna go up there, you need to know there's a spot there. You don't want to be circling for an hour and everyone has already gone out for the day.
Well, I think that goes for anybody that wants to use it. If you plan your day to go there and then it's filled with snow plants.
Yeah. We can definitely come up with some additional questions based on the conversation here, and maybe run a separate additional survey on the website. So those are good. So let's keep the dialogue going here.
So if it's not big enough, is there room for expansion later on after they get the data that they need?
What's it after what?
If the
Parking
parking
subsequent project.
if the parking lot's not big enough, is there room for expansion later on after?
I would say we want to do what we're going to do while we have a NEPA and a CEQA, and we're going to be seeking grant funding for implementation, that we have all the ducks in a row.
Yeah. So, again, let's finish the summaries here.
Just a couple more points here. There was talk about possibly partnering with Boreal or ASC for some sort of shuttle program to bring people over so that we're not taking up space at the new trailhead.
That one, but no.
Fair.
It's a round table. I wonder if, and I fully understand not having the appetite to work with Caltrans, but I wonder if we're really concerned with erosion and issues up at the parking lot, at 12% grade, is it being short-sighted not to include them at the ground floor here? And
They were invited.
Yeah,
And
I would say
it's been
we're
front and
trying.
center in our mind. Yeah.
It's, we're doing what we can there.
Yeah. But they will be part of the conversation before we get to 65, or
Yeah.
won't be at 65.
cool. And then just the multi-use nature of this. We have a finite sandbox that we all need to play in. And it's good that we're all coming to the table here now and working through the kinks up front.
Thanks for that.
Indeed.
Okay. Another table. Yes.
I think one of the main things that hasn't been touched here was pedestrian access for us. Once the parking lot's full and people are walking under the highway and we have the 12% grade, what does that look like with people walking up and down? Yeah, or driving machines too. Once it's full and we're parking in the current snow park place and we're going over there, like what does that look like with people walking up and down, cars coming down, machines going up and all around? What does the right of way look like? Pretty much everything else I think we touched on. Is there anything else here, guys, that?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate the maybe removing some of the natural features from the parking lot because it looks nice and pretty in the summer, but what happens in the wintertime, and everybody saw it this winter, is there becomes a pile of snow, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger with every storm because the plow driver doesn't want to hit anything, so it's a bigger berth, and it just ends up eliminating more parking in the long run. So we're going to build a parking lot, treat it like a parking lot. There's nature 270 degrees for miles in every direction from here.
Okay. All right. Who hasn't spoken? I lost track. Yes.
We had a resort table and one hiker. Sure, well, I work the parking lot. You guys have probably all seen me tell you not to park in our parking lot. A lot of our talk was, we love the idea of this. This is a place for the locals. You guys got to get there early anyways to get to Snow Park. Now it's nice you don't have to walk underneath the freeway. We came to consensus. We back this. It's really awesome that the Forest Service is willing to bend down and give us this. This is pretty awesome. Yeah, we're going to see the same park. We're all concerned about who's maintenance. I know you're going to look at us and we're going to be like, well, maybe not. But a lot of our concerns is during those busy holiday peak times when everybody's trying to get there. It's a nice sunny day. We blow it up. Those guys don't read signs. It doesn't matter if they have a permit. They're going to park wherever. I'm constantly towing and moving people. That's going to be an issue. They're going to fill this area. We all know that, but it's still going to give us more space, we decided, so it's still a benefit. I'm pretty excited about for parking to send people into another place because I close that parking at 8 o'clock every day, and you guys all tell me there's plenty of spaces back there. Other than that, that's kind of what we discussed. Mona is like maintenance. Big concern is where we're going to put the snow. Donner Summit's a different breed, 40, 30 feet of snow on those walls once we start blowing. What type of machines are we going to get up there? I mean, we went through hell this year, you guys all aware. Our machines took a beating. That's one of our main concerns, but obviously the road going up there, everybody here is probably on board, it needs to be wider. One person going up, this is a 12% grade right here on this hill, so that's what you're driving up. That's a huge concern, because once somebody from the flatlands comes up with their chains and they fall off and they come down, or their Tesla and they break down in there, you guys are all stuck there. It's one in and one out. I would look if we could get another exit in, maybe a roundabout or something, 2 lanes in and out would be beneficial for all the traffic. We block the highway pretty much every holiday and sunny weekend. We try not to, and we're doing the best we can, but having this would alleviate some of that pressure, and it would help out the locals get there early, they know where to go. Hopefully they won't put it on Google too fast that it's up there too. That's kind of what we've done.
Okay. Did anyone not share?
Can I just respond to that? We are trying to work with Caltrans to make sure that the road is wide enough to accommodate 2 vehicles.
Perfect.
So we do understand that if
No,
we're putting vehicles into that area, we need to get them out of that area as well. So thank you for the comment.
Okay, so Gail.
Video, we've got real-time, Caltrans videos, is that discussed in that area?
Do we have Caltrans video of what people going?
Well, in the parking, that, Lisa, I'm thinking of people blocking that, having trouble ingress and egress and blocking that area. Actually, it's not on Caltrans property, so that's a different piece.
So, no, but I think what I'm hearing is wanting more information on how is the use, right? Where are people going? What? So there's been many requests for having more information to inform the design. So obviously the team is doing all they can to pull in information, but we'll never have enough, as Aaron points out. So a decision has to be made to capitalize on the funds, but there's going to be a long step. So what we want to do to wrap up here is have, is there another hand? I'm sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, thanks. I'd just like to share one point that has been just touched on briefly. I'm not giving I don't know that we have a cohesive share out from this table, maybe we do. But just making sure that we're bringing in the horseback rider perspective. So going north, if someone wants to ride on the PCT heading north of Donner Summit, parking in the south side trailhead right now just doesn't work. Trying to get a horse to go through those tunnels it's a no-go. So having that access for northbound travel is really key. So I think it's important for the forest and for the group just to make sure that they're doing some sensing with backcountry horsemen and other equestrian groups.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that user group out. I haven't heard questions really speaking today, so it's definitely an interest that needs to be consulted with. So a couple final thoughts before we hear from District Ranger.
One more thing that came to mind was just overnighting and just not letting it be taken over by the Frog Lake huts. I mean, with that many volume of people, half the lot could be taken, and it could be taken for a week long. So addressing that in whatever way makes the most sense.
Right.
That's also a bathroom design consideration.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention another group that I am a member of that should be recognized here is the snow camping. I'm a leader for the snow camping training series, and a lot of our trips start from that trailhead and they move cars overnight. So, we tend to carpool because it's a sort of, but there's still a lot of people that need overnight parking.
Yeah. So interesting that so many of the comments aren't about the actual design, but really about how it's going to be used and managed and what some of those features are. So there's a lot that has to happen as part of this project. Thank you all for being here, and this is great input. It's at a critical time early in the process, so it's super helpful. So final question before we wrap it up? Kevin.
Can you tie into the sewer from Boreal?
Can you tie into the sewer over here from there? Anyone know?
So I think we're planning on pit toilets.
Okay.
No. They're balls.
All right. Well, some closing remarks, and then I've got one last exercise for you to do as you leave the room.
Yeah, just a few things. I mean, Austin nailed it, and so did your comments. So the management is obviously, management of this thing's huge. And we get that. The 12% grade is not desirable. And it's a big concern of mine. How do we put heavy vehicles on a slippery, icy surface at those grades? We took this grant on, we took this project on with our partners because we thought something was achievable. I still believe that. I think your comments have been fantastic. If it turns out that because of other rights-of-ways and access, we'll explain why what we want isn't achievable. So we're just going to be transparent through this whole process. Can't stress it enough. We are looking for a motorized and non-motorized trailhead for summer and winter. And so that's the goal of this project. We think we can deliver it. Thank you again, and we're just going to keep in touch with this whole process.
So to help keep in touch, a couple things I ask of you. When you came in, if you didn't put an email down, please leave the contact so we can add you to this mailing list. Obviously you showed up, so you heard about it, but we want to make sure that you get updates. One way to get an update too is to check out the project website at yubariver.org under their projects. There's a bunch of information, and they will use that to provide updates, as well as when the next meeting will happen, which will be some number of months off. The worksheets, if you completed them, please put them in that box back there, that wood box on the table as you leave. That'll be great. We're going to compile all that information. These are the same questions that are on the online survey. So don't feel the need to go complete that again, because you'll be double counting, right? We'll probably do some new questions there, and we'll send an email blast out if there's another set of questions that we're looking for everyone to answer. So that's a good one. And then one last thing I ask that you do as you leave. You notice I put up some flip chart pads outside on the wall there. I'm going to hand out, each person gets 8 dots. You can use these as you wish on each one of those pages. There's a number 4 pages that ask which of these are important to you. And then there's some topics like restrooms, signage. I encourage you to use a couple dots on those. And then there's 3 pages at the end that ask a very specific question. 1 dot on each one of those pages. So use these as you wish. Put them up there, and then we'll tally them all up, and that'll be part of the record here. And that'll just give us a sense of where everyone's landing. So thank you for coming out tonight. I'm glad the weather cooperated. I was a little nervous there with the thunder a couple hours ago that no one would show up. So thank you for being here. And question?
On the online survey.
Yes.
What's the deadline?
Online, yeah, has to be done. Online survey, we didn't. The 12th.
What month?
June. Thank you all.